The Bundesliga is back soon. La Liga and Serie A are just around the corner, and the Premier League will hopefully not be far behind. This is a Pressing Matters episode for all of you fantasy Premier League fanatics, and I have with me some FPL royalty on the show today. Mark McGettigan, also known as, or more popularly known as, the FPL General. 3 top 500 finishes in Fantasy Premier League. He writes on Fantasy Premier League for The Athletic, has appeared on the official FPL show, and has his own podcast called the 59th Minute Podcast. I'm sure if you're an FPL fan or part of the FPL community, Mark doesn't really need an introduction. The other person is AbuBakar Siddiq, someone who writes for the Fantasy Football Hub. You will probably know him for his game week review threads on Twitter, and and you might also know him because he was on the podcast previously. He has a top 4 finish in the world in, I think it was 14-15. Is that right, Bakar? Thanks so much, Mark and AbuBakar, for joining. It's a pleasure to have you both. So what we're going to do today, and you might be wondering, why have you got on these FPL experts on at a time when the game isn't even going on? Well, we're going to be creating and then discussing our all-time FPL squad, 2002, 2003, to the most recent campaign, which is 2019-2020. And at the risk of sounding like Jamie Carragher and one of his Cara challenges, I'm going to set up the rules before we get cracking. So the rules are that you can only select players from a specific season. So for example, if you want to choose someone like Frank Lampard, you have to specify which season you're going for. So Frank Lampard from 08-09, for example. You can't pick someone for in terms of longevity or have their whole career as a criteria. You can only have a maximum of 2 players per club. Obviously players who played for that club in that specific season. So for example, I know Brad Friedel played for Liverpool at some time, but if you're picking Friedel and he played for some other club during that season, that's fine. You can't repeat the same player. And this season is obviously included, like I mentioned previously. Some other rules are, we have set a 3-4-3 formation plus subs. So we're going to lay out a criteria in terms of price tiers. And the reason we did that is because obviously we don't have uniform data about prices from since FPL started, but we still have an idea of where players ranked in terms of their tiers and their prices. So in order to have some sort of budget constraints, we devised price tiers. So for defenders, 6 million and above is high tier, between 5 to 6 million is mid tier, and below 5 million is low tier. For midfielders and forwards, we have 9.5 million and above high tier, 7 to 9.5 million mid tier, below 7 million is low tier. And then we decided that the keeper must be below 5 million. So with that in mind, the defenders, so in a 3-4-3 formation, 1 defender can be high tier, and then you have 2 mid-tier defenders to choose from. And for midfielders and forwards, you have a combined maximum 3 high tier players, and at least 1 midfielder and 1 forward each should be low tier. So let's get starting. Mark, do you want to start us off with your team?
Yeah, when you guys asked me to do this first, I thought this is going to be so easy. Drogba, Lampard, easy. And then I picked a team, and then I got a message about all of these rules and restrictions, and I had to scrap my team and start from scratch again. But it's good. It made it more challenging. So I'm going to start with my goalkeeper. It's probably the weakest part of my FPL career has been the goalkeeper position. It's in the early days, I never had any luck. Like premium goalkeepers, cheap goalkeepers, rotating goalkeepers, nothing ever worked until the last couple of seasons. It's been much better because I've just decided to go for Burnley goalkeepers. It doesn't matter who's in goal. So I'm going to just start with a player from this season. I've had him for most of the season, Nick Pope. He's the top scoring goalkeeper so far with 128 points. And he's been a solid pick for me all season. I also had him a couple of years ago when he did very well as well. So a nice and easy, boring pick to start with, Nick Pope.
That's nice. Let's just go through your sub-keepers. Or do you want to... Is it better that we go through our starting lineups first by position and then we go to the subs in the end? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's probably better.
All right. So, Bakar, what's your keeper? Or what do you any thoughts over the seemingly boring Nick Pope?
Burnley keepers are always great picks in FPL. I absolutely agree with Mark. But for my first choice goalkeeper, I've gone with David James from Portsmouth. Honestly, I could have picked him for any season, 06, 07, or 07, 08, in which he's accumulated like 167, 173 points, which is an amazing feat for any goalkeeper. So, and I like having cheap goalkeepers and make saves. So he fits the bill perfectly, being in goal for Portsmouth. So I've picked David James as my first choice. What about you?
So coincidentally, I've also gone for James 07, 08. I think Portsmouth keeper maximum. I think he would be below 5 million. So I think we're good there. And he, like you said, he had 173 points. So now to the defense.
Yeah, so do you want me to just go for my first pick or go for the three of them together?
3 of them I think would be fine, and then we can all have a chat about it.
My high price defender. This was really hard. It's very hard when you can only have one high tier player. So I was 50-50 between 2 Chelsea defenders from one era under Jose Mourinho and a more recent era. So it was either going to be Ivanovic or Marcos Alonso. So in the end, I decided Marcos Alonso. I think probably because it's more recent and I have fresher, good memories. Just the most amazing defender a fantasy manager can ever think of. Attacking fullback. I remember, I think it was against Spurs one time, he scored a brace. Just so many good memories of Marcos Alonso finding the back of the net. So alongside him, I think I went for Alonso from 2016-17. He scored 177 points that year. That was his first big season. 6 goals, 5 assists, and 15 clean sheets. So huge points there. Alongside him, I went for the 2 middle tier players. Again, this was quite tricky. I went for my fellow county man, Seamus Coleman. He's from the same part of Ireland as me. So, I've played a few times, a couple of games of golf with him, pitch and putt. So I think I have to include him for that reason. So I went for 2013-14. He scored 180 points. He was 5 million to start the season. And he ended the season at 6.8 million. So a crazy price rise there. 6 goals, 2 assists, and 15 clean sheets in that season. And also, this was probably the last position I picked on my team was the 3rd defender. And I decided in the end for Patrick van Aanholt, FPL legend. I went for 2015-16. He was 5 million. He didn't score a huge number of points that season, really. Not many clean sheets, I guess. 127. But he scored 6 goals and got 4 assists. So 10 attacking returns for a defender. Amazing back then until people like Robertson and Trent arrived. So that's my 3. Alonso, Coleman, and PVA.
I'm surprised you didn't have a Liverpool defender in there. Someone like Trent.
That's because I'm a Manchester United fan.
Well, then I'll have to take Ronaldo out of my team.
You know what? I just realised I actually don't think I have any Liverpool players. And I didn't do that on purpose.
Sure. No one will believe you, though. Bakar, what about you? What do you think? Alonso, a great pick, obviously.
All 3 of my defenders come from Merseyside clubs. Starting from the high-priced defender. And this was an incredibly tough decision between Alonso and Trent, but I've gone with Trent for the current season, in which he has accumulated 166 points with a points per game score of 5.72. So he was a non-negotiable for me. I've been raving about him in my stats, the articles this season. His chance creation is incredible. I just don't think we'll ever see anything like this in the years to come. So he was an automatic pick for me.
Yeah, he's a midfielder playing at right back, though.
I mean, the thing is, I was so high on him that it basically meant that I would have had to pick one between Salah and Suarez.
That's what I.
But I still sort of stuck with my pick, and it also meant that I had to overlook Alonso, who's had 3 Dream Team appearances. And he was
really
a goal-scoring machine as well.
When you look back, you don't really think of him in FPL terms. You think of him as this frustrating defender who cost Chelsea a lot of points going the other way. But obviously in attacking terms, he was amazing, especially under Conte.
But I've stuck with Trent. as my high tier pick. For my mid-price defenders, I've gone with Seamus Coleman and Lescott from Everton. Seamus Coleman, infamously known as Goalman, ever since that season happened in 13-14. He was scoring a lot of goals. He was a bit of a legend back then. Hasn't really lived up to his sort of billing ever since. But Lescott actually was far more popular and far more consistent than Coleman. Lescott, I picked him for 07-08. He accumulated 196 points that year. And he was also in the dream team in 06 and 08. So he was basically there for 3 consecutive seasons. So he was really consistent. So I've picked Julian Lescott as my third defender.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. I could be wrong on this one, but I think Lescott might be the highest scoring defender of all time. I think
of all time in like football or the Premier League.
In FPL, I think he has the most points for any defender. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I read that somewhere. So he
over
was
the course of his career.
Sorry?
Over the course of his career?
Are you talking about over the course of his career?
Over the course of his career, I think he may have the most points of any defender.
Baines has the most points.
Yeah, which brings me to the question: Why don't you guys have Baines in your team? He was a mid tier at one point.
Yeah, I think for me it came Coleman versus Baines, and I had to go with my fellow Irishman. But yeah, Baines was very close to my team. I mean, rock solid, penalties. You could rely on him every week, but yeah, he was very close.
Same here.
Yeah, as the saying went, never bench, never captain.
Yeah. I have Lescott and Coleman, so I really had to pick Baines in place of either of these. So I didn't really want to leave either of these out. So I'll have to give Baines a miss for now. Yeah,
so for me, I went for 2 of the picks that Bakar went with. So Trent, 1920. 166 points in 29 games, I think, or 30 games, I'm not sure. And then Lescott, 07-08, which is staggering, 196 for a centre back. I wonder how many, was it mostly down to clean sheets, or did he have a lot of attacking returns as well? So that because back then you didn't really have those high scoring defenders. So even players like Terry or Vidic didn't get around the 190s mark because a lot of their points were based on clean sheets and not attacking returns. And my second mid-tier defender is Taylor from Portsmouth, 06-07. Many of you will remember him for his great left foot. He used to put those crosses in, and even scored that worldie from I think it was near the halfway line, where he just put it in the goal from way out.
Used to take some penalties as well.
Yeah, he was all over. He was the old school Robertson. And then so let's move to midfield. By the way, did you guys have any other players like Baines in which you were considering, but then they had to miss out either because you had players from the same club in there, or?
Yes, I was actually considering Alderweireld and Bellerin, both from 15-16. Alderweireld got 166, Bellerin got 172, and I remember them scoring a crazy amount of points that year. Particularly, I had Alderweireld, so he was scoring a lot of goals, and he was even putting those balls over the top for Ali, and they were scoring the similar kind of goal that year. But he didn't make the cut, unfortunately. But I was actually considering him.
For me, it was just Baines and Ivanovic. They were the closest guys to making it. Like Bakar, I have good memories of Alderweireld, that treble up, like Harry Kane, Dele Alli, Toby Alderweireld. He used to be amazing at scoring goals, and then all of a sudden he just decided to stop scoring them.
Yeah.
I think Mourinho will probably hope that he can get back to them in some way. So before I move on, I just want to credit Top Marks and Jairzinho from the Fantasy Football Scout community, who provided us with the data so we can carry out this activity. Thanks a lot, guys. Cheers. So let's move to our midfield. Mark, you want to go first?
Yeah. So 4 midfielders. So I went for 2 premium midfielders, and then I went just for 1 premium forward. So the premium midfielders, first of all, I think the easiest one for me as a Manchester United fan, Cristiano Ronaldo, from 2007-2008, he scored 283 points, 31 goals, 7 assists. Crazy season. I still miss that guy so much when I go to Old Trafford. I just wish he was still there. Another guy, he didn't play so well when he went to Old Trafford, but when he was an Arsenal player, he was amazing. Alexis Sanchez, I've gone for 2016-17. He was 11 million that season, 264 points, 24 goals, 11 assists, and 32.
Heard he's pretty handy with the piano.
I think that's what went wrong. That piano was the start of the downfall.
Yeah.
So Sanchez at Arsenal was some of my best memories. I think my highest ever score in FPL in a game week, I think, was 184 points. It was a bench boost, and I think Sanchez was captain. I think for 75 points possibly. So back then he was amazing for captaincy most weeks. So then I had to go for some cheaper midfielders. I think one of the easiest ones who most people, when you say who are the FPL legends of all time, this guy Michu from Swansea very often comes up. 2012-13, 190 points, midfielder, basically out of position, scoring loads of goals, one season wonder.
And then just disappeared. God knows where. He went to Napoli on loan and then just disappeared.
Just disappeared and just left his mark on FPL history. And the final midfield spot for me, one of my best ever FPL decisions was 2015-16 when Leicester won the title. I went in game week 1 with Riyad Mahrez, 5.5 million. And I remember it very, very well. It was the Friday night before the season started. Myself and my auntie, she's a big FPL player. The two of us were trying to finalise our team. We needed one last midfielder for around 5 million, 5.5, and I decided Mahrez, and she followed me. So both of us had a very good season from Mahrez. 240 points, 17 goals, 11 assists, 38 bonus. He was 5.5 and he finished, I think, at 7.2 that season. So, I mean, that was amazing. I was very lucky that season as well. I got to go and see Leicester for, I think it was against Sunderland. So I remember staying in Newcastle. We travelled to Sunderland. We went to see the title-winning team. So I still have the match ticket. I can show to my grandkids when I'm 75 years old and I'm still playing FPL. I can say I went to see Mahrez and Vardy and Ranieri and Kante and all of these guys. So yeah, Mahrez is one of my all-time favourite picks.
I think you'll boast more about the fact that you had him from game week 1 rather than the fact that you went to see him. So yeah, I think
more impressive.
Yeah, that's true. Can you guys think of any other player who started off so low but like outscored almost everyone? I think he outscored everyone apart from. Was there anyone above him?
Yeah, I would find it hard to imagine. I mean, not many. I mean, 240 is crazy for 5.5 million. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I think he was the top scorer that season. The second ranked was a joint Harry Kane and Jamie Vardy, 211. So a 5.5 million player topped the season by a distance.
Incredible. Was crazy.
Yeah. Bakar, what do you think?
Yeah, so I've actually picked 2 high-priced midfielders. One of them is Mo Salah. I just think he's an automatic selection for anyone who scores over 300 points in one season has to be an automatic selection no matter what. So he comes in straight away, 17-18 for his incredible performances. The other one was very, very hard to pick because as someone who's frankly speaking obsessed with Frank Lampard and a Manchester United fan, I was torn between Ronaldo and Lampard. Lampard has had the most successive Dream Team appearances of all players, so it was really, really hard to leave him out. But since we're speaking about one season and not longevity, I've actually picked Ronaldo with 283 points, 07-08. So I agree with Mark over there. Ronaldo and Salah are my high-priced mids. For my medium pick, I've picked Yaya Toure from 13-14 in that incredible season where Liverpool, I'm sorry to remind you, it's me, but bottled it at the end. And Yaya Toure scored 241. He was frankly the reason why.
It's all right. We're going to win it this year.
Maybe.
Definitely. So just sorry to cut you off, but so one of the things that I think is important to highlight is that so many of these players, when you look back, you have these preconceived, anchor points in your head. So Yaya Toure would never, or Mahrez would never be a low tier if I thought back of him, if I hadn't played FPL at that point. You never think of Mahrez as a low tier player. You never think of Yaya Toure or someone like, Sterling or even Kevin De Bruyne as a middle tier player, but that's where they started off. Kevin De Bruyne, as early as the start of this season, was a mid-tier player. I think it was 9 something like that.
I think it was 9.5.
Yeah, so just on the border. Anyway, go on. Yeah.
So for my fourth midfielder, I mean, this one picks itself. Riyad Mahrez for that incredible season with Leicester, 240 points, started off at 5.5. Scored so many goals, was a reliable captaincy choice. So he's the one I picked from Leicester. So yeah, Toure, Mahrez, Salah, and Ronaldo are my four.
So once again, I have some picks that are similar to Bakar. So I have Salah as well, 303. Like you said, I actually thought that all three of us would have that in there, but Mark, the Man United fan,
I think
clearly disagrees.
In hindsight, he probably should be in my team.
You've got your Red Devil glasses on.
Exactly. I think if you're asking me this question in 3 or 4 years' time, I think he will be in there. Maybe it's because it's so recent that I.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So I have Salah, 17-18, 303 points. Started only at 10.6. I say only because it's 303 points. Then you have Cristiano Ronaldo, 07-08. I think he scored 31 goals and had 7 assists that season. 283 points. So like Bakar, I was torn between him and Lampard from 09-10. That was 284 points. So the reason why I separated the two was so Lampard had 284 points in 3,220 minutes. So per 90 he had 7.94 points. Ronaldo, on the other hand, had 283 points from 2,747 minutes. So he had a much higher 9.27 points per 90. So that was one of the reasons why, that was a tiebreaker for me. And one of the other tiebreakers, which obviously isn't something that we compute for in FPL, but I just remember Ronaldo tearing up the whole joint back in 07-08, scoring from all sorts of places and doing all sorts of crazy things. And then my mid pick is Raheem Sterling, 17-18. He started off at 8 million, had 229 points at the end. I was torn between him and Dele Alli from 16-17, where Dele Alli got 225 points. But the reason why I went for Sterling was once again that Sterling had a higher points per game of 6.9. Ali had a points per game of 6.1. And then I think that's the only pick that all three of us went for, or I think Lundstrom was one as well, which is Mahrez, Leicester, 15-16. What more can you say? We've already said so much about him. So moving on to our forwards now.
Wait a second. Yeah. I just want to point out another player I had a really hard time leaving out was Clint Dempsey from Fulham.
Which year? Which season?
11-12. He got 209 points. He was incredible that year, scoring so many goals. He was really, really good for me back
just a point on Clint Dempsey, which is pretty absurd now that you look back on it. When Jordan Henderson came to Liverpool, I think it was 11-12 or 10-11. I'm not sure. He was told to put in a transfer request and go because Liverpool wanted Clint Dempsey from Fulham, and he chose to stay and fight for his place. Oh. And now he's a Champions League and hopefully Premier League winning captain.
Let's see.
Yeah, go on.
Should I move on to the forwards?
Yeah, sure.
Let's start with you, Mark.
Yeah, sure. Just one last name of midfielders before I move to the forwards was, I don't have the exact season here, but again, one of the all-time FPL legends. He's not doing much anymore, but Gylfi Sigurdsson was good. Yeah. Quite similar to Clint Dempsey in a way. Similar price, similar returns. Again, just so consistent over the seasons. But again, like you guys, it was very hard to leave Lampard out. But again, Lampard in my mind is more like a longevity, like the best, possibly the best FPL asset of all time over like 10 seasons. But for individual seasons, that's why I went for Sanchez and Ronaldo. So on to the forwards. Because I picked 2 premium midfielders, I can only choose 1 premium forward. Very difficult because you have like Drogba, Harry Kane, Suarez, Rooney, amazing players. Very hard to pick one, but very hard for me as a Manchester United fan to pick this one. But it has to be Sergio Agero for me. And I've gone for 2014-15. He was 12 million that season, 26 goals, 10 assists, and 27 bonus points. Season after season. When I joined FPL Twitter for the first time, the most common hashtag I would see on a Friday night or a Saturday morning was always Captain Aguero. And it was usually a good thing. If you captained Aguero, you're usually going to have a good game week. And it's amazing that he's still doing it. He's been doing it for so long, and he's still such an amazing player. So for me, I think it was an easy pick, Aguero. And then I had to go for some cheaper forwards. So I think a popular one for a lot of managers who have been playing for a long time as well, Charlie Austin, 2014-15. He scored an amazing 176 points despite QPR finishing bottom of the table. I think QPR only achieved something like 30 points that year. They only scored around 40 goals, but Charlie Austin scored 18. Absolutely unbelievable season. Everything he touched went in the back of the net. 18 goals and 7 assists as well. Really good numbers for assists for a forward. So Charlie Austin is in my team. And the last one, slightly different. I don't think any of you guys will have this one. One of my personal favourites. I picked him from game week 1 in 2008-2009. That was Amazake from Wigan. He started the season on fire. I remember he scored something like 7, 8, 9 goals in the first maybe 9 or 10
including a scissor kick against Liverpool at Anfield.
I'm pretty sure there was a hat-trick, possibly game week 1, maybe game week 2, and very few people owned him. So that got me off to a very good start. I think he scored like 15 or 17 points in that game week. Looking back on it was interesting. He actually only scored 10 goals in total.
Yeah, he dropped off, yeah.
So he must have scored all of them at the very
It's
start.
like Timu Pukki this season. Started off with a bang and
exactly.
then Pukki party and then just faded away.
Exactly. And Zaki, I remember, I was just doing a little bit of pre-season research. I remember he just signed for Wigan. I was looking at some of his stats from previous clubs, and his goal scoring record was unbelievable, even though it wasn't huge clubs. But I just said, I like to take 1 or 2 punts sometimes in game week 1, and that was one of the rare occasions where it actually worked out for me. So
not a rare occasion though. You're being too harsh on yourself. You had Mahrez as well.
Amazake, Charlie Austin, and Sergio Agüero. That's my front 3.
That's solid. Oh, so like you were saying, QPR only got 30 points in the whole season, despite Charlie Austin, scoring so many. Crazy. They conceded 73 goals, which is just I don't know what that is. That's like over 2 goals. That's over 2 goals a game,
roughly.
Yeah, which is crazy. Yeah, Bakar, go on.
Yeah, so like Mark, I picked 2 premium midfielders as well. So by the rules of the game, I can only pick 1 premium forward, which was incredibly hard to pick given the likes of Rooney, Andre, Suarez, Aguero, you name it. I mean, there's so many people you can pick from, Lukaku even. I've gone with Van Persie though, because he was the player who made me fall in love with the game. Because I started playing like in 7-8, but I was casual back then. So the season I started playing seriously, Van Persie was the go-to pick.
His Man United season, right?
The one before it. The one before when he was at Arsenal. Yeah. So so he accumulated 269 points in 11-12, 262 in 12-13. Honestly, I can pick him for either. But being a Manchester United fan as well, that's an added incentive to pick Van Persie in my team. The next one was probably the toughest pick of the entire game for me. The mid-part price forward was incredibly hard to pick. But the ones I listed down are Roque Santa Cruz from Blackburn, 07-08. He got 182 points. Andy Johnson from Palace, who was similar to Charlie Austin in the way that the team got relegated, but he was scoring goals for fun. He accumulated 183 points in 04-05. But the one I have picked is James Beattie from Southampton, 02-03. And he scored an incredible amount of points that year, 192. Which hasn't been bettered in terms of data. I will admit I didn't watch football back then, but the numbers in front of me are just staggering. So, and there's no one even close to him in that mid-price range. So I'll pick James Beattie, 4-2-3 for his 192 points. And for my last pick, I had to choose between Harry Kane, Austin, which was very hard to pick because that was a season where I did really well, and both of these players scored so many points for me. But I think keeping in mind the fact that we're picking teams on a budget, and Kane started off as a 4.5 million player, I'm gonna pick Harry Kane for 14-15. 191 points, 21 goals, 7 assists. I don't think we'll ever see a player ever against starting at 4.5 million as a forward and accumulating 21 goals and 7 assists. So Harry Kane is my option right here.
Yeah, that's some great stuff. I think the Kane 14-15 is a straight pick for a lot of people who remember where like he started off at 4.5. And I think Bakar, interesting enough, I think that's the season where you finished fourth and you had Kane.
Yeah. Kane and Austin both scored an incredible amount of points for me. So it was like whoever I didn't pick.
But how did you, I don't remember that season, like the nitty gritties of it. So I don't remember if Kane was a starter. If he was, why was he priced at 4.5? I think Soldado was a starter.
Yeah, Soldado was a starter, and Adebayor was playing, I think, with him at a point. But there was this game against Aston Villa where I think Soldado was either injured or suspended, and Kane started that game, and he scored a late winner from a free kick against Villa. And that is when I bought him.
I think that was Pochettino's first season, right?
Just as a...
14-15 was his first season. 13-14 was him at Southampton.
Yeah, the rest is history. He just kept on scoring.
Yeah, that's true. He's not stopped. So again, I can also only pick one high tier forward. I've, like you two have said, there are so many to pick from. The reason why I cannot pick probably the best individual season I've seen from a striker since I started watching football is Luis Suarez 13-14. Not just in terms of the goals he scored and what he did. But I mean, it's staggering because he missed the first 8 games, I think, because of a ban, and then came and then just went crazy with 295 points. But just his overall play, it was some of the best for individual skill I've seen as a Liverpool fan or anywhere in the Premier League. So I had to miss out on him because I had Mo Salah. Just in terms of points, 303 is like you can't argue with that. And so instead of him, I've gone for one of my other favorite Premier League strikers, Thierry Henry. Like Robin van Persie, he had 2 or 3 insane FPL seasons in which he scored over 250 points. I've gone for 203 where he had 271. And one of the interesting things about Henry was that he just didn't score goals. He had a lot of assists as well. So he has the Premier League record for most assists in a season. That's 20. And generally as well, over the course of several seasons, he had a lot of assists as well as goals. So I've gone for him. And then, so my mid-tier is BT from Southampton, 0203, like Bakar. That was 192 points. And then, like I said, Kane had to go in there, 4.5 million. That was a straight pick. The other player that I thought I could go in for by mid-pick was Romelu Lukaku. I think Bakar couldn't have him in there because he already had 2 Everton players. But since I only went for Lescott, I could go for him. But again, like you said, BT was just insane, had more points per game. So I went for him in the end. Hello? Yeah, sorry. There must have been something. Yeah. So what was the last point that you heard?
The last point was when you were going on about BT.
Right. So did I mention Lukaku or did I not?
No. I couldn't hear.
Oh, so basically I went for James BT as well, and then Harry Kane, similar to Bakar. So Harry Kane had to go in there. So with BT, I could have easily gone for Romelu Lukaku as well. I think it was, it was 15-16 here, 185 points. The reason, quite simply, why I didn't go for him was because he's an Everton player, or he was an Everton player. So I just picked a Southampton one and said, "Hey, you can still be a bitter rival fan in whatever game you're playing." So, like Mark didn't choose Salah, I didn't choose Lukaku.
He played for
We
Everton.
are the managers. We can do what we want.
Yeah, hopefully we'll never actually become managers in real life, or else our club will go to shit.
Best players will be on the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, while I was drafting my squad, two players I was certain would be very popular were actually Luis Suarez and Jamie Vardy from that Leicester title-winning season. But it's really surprising to see that none of you have picked either. So I think it's
The reason why I didn't pick
pick
Vardy. So when I was drafting the team, if you remember, first we didn't decide whether there was a cap on teams. So I had Huth, I had Mahrez, and I had Vardy. But then I thought that these would be pretty popular picks across the board because Leicester 15-16 is a season that everyone would like choose from. Precisely because they were underdogs, even the players themselves in FPL. So then
I think the reason.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go on.
Yeah, the reason I didn't go for Vardy was I made one good decision in 15-16 to have Mahrez from game week 1, but I made a bad decision. I was very stubborn with Jamie Vardy that season. I kept saying this won't continue. He's going to stop scoring soon, and I didn't buy him until like game week 33 or 34. So I don't have a lot of love for that guy. So that's why.
So Mark, just on a general note, as an FPL expert, what do you think should be the, I don't know if there's even a science involved, or what should be the decision making when a player is doing well, but you think that he'll drop off, or you think he's someone you should get in on early? Obviously there's expected goals and stuff, but what else do you think is important?
Yeah, it's. I think that's one of the hardest parts of FPL is making that decision, because I will see it one way, but you will see it the opposite way, and you really just. I think the main thing is always for me. I'm not someone who looks at a lot of stats. I do look at stats, but not hugely. I'm someone who watches a lot of games, so I'll watch like 5 or 6 games per week. So for me, it's always just eye test and coming up with my own feeling from my own eyes. Do I think, can this be sustained, or do I think, is he getting slightly lucky with these goals? So, but for me, one of the biggest lessons I think any manager has to learn in FPL is you can't be stubborn, and that was a good lesson for me with Jamie Vardy. You can't be stubborn with these players. Like it was Danny Ings this season. You can't be stubborn. If you think he's going to get injured, you can't just think like that. If you're going to miss out on so many points. Sometimes you just have to go against your beliefs and just bite the bullet and go with your tail between your legs and just buy the player.
Yeah, because, upward chasing.
You're going to miss out on so many points. Exactly.
So like
you
said, Ings was a pretty important decision, not only when people had to buy him when he was scoring a lot of goals, but now when you before the season got suspended, obviously when he dropped off, and a lot of people were wondering whether they should bin him or not, and a lot of people who decided to bin him, I think, did the right thing, because he had dropped off quite a bit. So interestingly enough, like you said, I also prescribe more towards the eye test method. So I watch a lot of football as well. So that's one of the things what I do. And then I use stats to obviously probe into, for example, if Harvey Barnes is someone who's looking promising because he's arriving into the box for balls, Ricardo Pereira balls to come in. Then you look at stats and see he has a lot of shots inside the box and all of that. But interesting enough, I think Bakar was the one who told me. Simon March, who won the FPL in 14-15, said he didn't watch a single game. Is that right?
Yeah, even if he watched a game, I think it was only maybe 2 or 3 possibly. But yeah, that's true. So it just shows you there's so many different ways to play the game, and you don't necessarily have to watch games to do well.
Yeah, that's true. So any other thoughts or any problems that you had drafting your team? Any issues?
No issues. We should talk about the bench players, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Ismi, have you picked your third forward?
Yeah, so my third forward, same as yours, Harry Kane. Let's start from subs. Mark, let's just go through each. We have three subs. We can go through. You can tell all of them, and then we can go that way.
So the sub, first of all, the sub goalkeeper, I just stuck with Burnley because they're the only team I've had any luck with goalkeepers. So I went for Tom Heaton. I think 2014-15 he scored 150. Also 4.5 million that season, the same as Nick Pope is now. So I think for the rest of my career, I will just pick a Burnley goalkeeper in FPL. In the two defenders on my bench, I think an easy pick for most people will be John Lundstrom, 4 million from this season.
The Lord.
128 points so far. I owned him from game week 1, so that was another reason for me to put him in. So that was a good decision.
I see a trend here. You're picking all the good players from the start.
It seems to be the preseason research is working, and that's why I had a terrible season last season because I got married last summer or two summers ago. So
you don't want the missus
to hear that.
There was no
time for the preseason research. I blame my wife for my 500k rank that season. So I just pretend that season didn't happen. The second defender on my bench, another Irish right back to go alongside Coleman, Matt Doherty. 2000 from last season, 2018-19, 4.5 million, 4 goals, 7 assists. And I have good memories this season as well because I brought him in a couple of weeks before the lockdown and he was amazing. He helped me rise like 100,000 places alongside Harvey Barnes on my second.
Yeah, one of the most attacking fullbacks and he's only priced at 6 million. Or he was before,
It's, so often you watch Wolves and he's in the 6-yard box from open play. It's crazy. So Tom Heaton, Matt Doherty, John Lundstrom, and the final place on my bench goes to a player from way back, 2005, 2006. Some of my earliest memories are from this season, 2005, 2006. Bakar mentioned earlier Roque Santa Cruz. He's actually the player. He's my first memory of fantasy is picking Roque Santa Cruz in my FPL team, but he didn't make it into my forward line, so I put one of his teammates, Morten Gamps Pedersen. That season, he made the dream team with 168 points. Amazing left foot, free kicks, corners. Lots of times he would take a corner and he would just go straight for goal, even from the corner. So he is a legend. I played the Norwegian fantasy game last season.
There's a Norwegian fantasy team. Fantasy game.
I was picking my team for game week 1 and I found this guy, Gamps Pedersen. And it's the same guy playing, I think he was 37 years old, playing for a team in Norway. So it was nice to be able to pick him again. But he was like a 4.5 million defensive midfielder now because he's so old. So didn't get so many points.
Yeah, that's before Bakar, you tell your subs. I just want to say something about the Burnley keeper. So this season, I had wretched luck because I didn't prescribe to Mark's method of sticking with Burnley keeper. So if you guys remember, Ryan and Pope are two alternates that a lot of people chose between this season. And as you also know, this season has been pretty crazy. And if you're picking based on fixtures or something like that, nothing seems to hold. There is no trend. So one of the greatest examples of that is, so I saw that Ryan had a lot of good fixtures, Brighton had a lot of good fixtures. This is late January, early January or early February, something around that time. And then conversely, Burnley had a lot of bad fixtures. So they had Man City, they had Chelsea, they had a lot of red fixtures in there. And then the sensible thing I thought would be because there was the same price point as well, to take out Pope and then bring in Ryan, because Ryan could get a lot of possible clean sheets. Even if not that, he made a lot of saves in between games as well. But as the FPL gods would have it, Pope went on to accumulate over 30 points in the next 4 game weeks with back-to-back clean sheets, while Ryan got blanks in every single game barring one, in which he got, I think, 4 points. So that was a big reason why my rank fell from, I think it was 300k to 500k or something like that. So that was one of the things.
You know what? It's interesting you say that, because I really shouldn't say this after I picked him in my team, Nick Pope, but I did exactly the same thing as you. So I played my wild card in the last game week, I think, so game week 19, just before game week 20. Like you, Nick Pope he had a few quiet games before game week 19, and then he had some tricky fixtures.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan was doing well and had good fixtures. So I made the switch on the wild card. I went from Nick Pope to Matt Ryan. So for game week 20, and then it was disaster.
Yeah.
But then I played my second wild card quite soon after. I played my second wild card like game week 25 or 26. So I just fixed the mistake. I got rid of Ryan and I just went back to Nick Pope, and it worked really well. So that was another lesson. Just if you have a policy of setting and forgetting a goalkeeper, do it. Don't change your mind when it comes to the wild card.
That sounds good.
Yeah, so Bakar, your subs.
Yeah, so my sub keeper is Schwarzer from Fulham. 0809, 175 points. Again, an incredible amount of points for a goalkeeper. Fulham were actually 17th in 07, 08. So Schwarzer must have been cheap back then. So I'm sure he fulfills the criteria of our keeper being below 5 million. Um, I was actually torn between him and Fabianski because Fabianski is a save god, and I love
Then
Fabianski.
FPL legend, yeah.
But I mean, Fabianski's high season has been 157, so the points gap was such that I went with Schwarzer. Then for my defenders, there were three I was considering for my team, the cheap defenders. There was Aaron Wan-Bissaka from Crystal Palace, 18-19 last year. He accumulated 120 points, started off at a price of 4 million. And then there were the two that Mark mentioned, John Lundstrom this year and Matt Doherty last year. Matt Doherty started off at a price of 4.5 million, accumulated 144 points, 4 goals, 7 assists. And as I said earlier regarding Trent, I love fullbacks or players who score attacking points. So I'm going to pick Doherty and Lundstrom as well. The reason I pick Lundstrom over Wan-Bissaka is because even though Wan-Bissaka was incredibly consistent that year, but tell me 4 million defender ever in history to score a 21 pointer at home against Burnley. So that was the reason
If Mark has a Burnley keeper in there, he's screwed.
Well, so yeah, I'm aware of the fact that he's lost his starting position, but he has 129 points already. And given the fact that he's only 4 million, I'll happily take it, even if he does nothing else for the rest of the campaign. For my midfielders, this was very tough. There were three candidates I was considering. There was Dele Alli in that 15-16 season where he broke out. He was only 5 million but scored 166 points. Wasn't part of the dream team, but I was still considering him. There was Charlie Adam for Blackpool, 192 points in 2010-11. But I've gone with Michu from 12-13 with his 190 points because he started off really well. I think he scored a hat trick in the first game against QPR, and he kept on scoring really well for the opening few game weeks. And I love it when a preseason pick comes off due to the research, like you guys were talking about. Preseason for me is like the favorite time of the season. So yeah, I've gone with Michu as my cheap midfielder over Adam and Dele Alli.
Right. So I've obviously
Sorry.
yeah.
Besides that, like Charlie Adam loves those yellow cards and red cards, so that's something which put me up as well. I was actually just checking. He's got like 4 red cards, 48 yellow cards over the course of his career, which is quite a lot. So
Yeah, that's
I'd go with me.
That's true. I went for Charlie Adam though from 2010-11 because I don't remember how many yellow or red cards he got, but he sure got 192 points, which was enough for my beloved club to splash the cash on him, stupidly enough. But there you have it. I still put him in he's part of the bench. My two defenders on the bench are Lord Lundstrom, popular pick everywhere in this season and in this challenge as well. I'm sure a lot of people who start making these teams will have him in there. And then the second one is Robert Huth. So because of Robert Huth, I didn't go for Jamie Vardy. But I think Robert Huth or Wes Morgan from 15-16 were great picks because they started off at 4.5 million. And he got 140 points. And most of them were from, defensive capability. So a lot of clean sheets. I think they got 15 that season. And like you said, Bakar, I also love a fullback and attacking fullback, but it's nice to have some sort of balance in between your back line. So in terms of someone, if they're not getting an attacking return, you can count on some players like Hoots to, rotate them in and get a clean sheet. And yeah, that's about it. My goalkeeper is Fabianski. 17-18 Swansea, started off at 4.7 million, 157 points.
Yeah, it's actually fascinating that we've picked Lundstrom, all three of us, despite him not actually being in any dream team so far. and Matt Doherty as well. Me and Mark picked him despite him not being in the dream team so far. So it's
I think
actually
for me
quite fascinating.
the biggest surprise for me, I think, was there was no Suarez,
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
and also there was no Lampard either.
yeah, absolutely. No
Yeah,
Rooney either.
that's
But Rooney's been
two
he's been the
big
highest
surprises.
scorer. As he has the highest accumulated points. I was reading the stat like a couple of days ago. He has like the highest accumulated points ever since FPL records were kept since 2006 over the course of his career, and yet no one has him.
And
Since
we
Lampard.
didn't even talk about him when we were
Let's
talking
spin
about
this
the
whole
team.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, we can only have 15. Like Lampard's had like most successful doing team appearances.
I mean,
David Williams has had
if we were
most points in the
making a
Premier
team based on longevity and their entire FPL careers, I'm pretty sure we would have players like Lampard, Rooney, and
Yeah,
Terry, maybe some players like that who have played for a long time,
Yeah,
accumulated a lot of points.
Jack would be in there, man.
Yeah, that's true, but not under our rules.
Not under our rules. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah. So, any thoughts before we wrap this up?
no, I
That's-
want to say thank you guys for inviting me to do this.
No,
It was good
thank you
fun.
so
Really,
much,
really
Mark.
enjoyed it.
Thanks
No,
for
it
taking
was
out
a
the
good-
time.
It took me way longer than it should have today to put this together. Like I said, I had a beautiful team ready to go. Lampard, Drogba, all these amazing players, and then you sent me the rules, and I had to start again. It was good fun, so-
Interestingly enough, you might have got another shock message because in between when we decided the rules, a while after that, I was like, let's just make this more spicy. My inner Jamie Carragher, kept piping up. So I was like, well, Bakar, why don't we have like one player from one season? And that would be really interesting. Then you would have to like
would be hard.
sacrifice a lot of players from one another. But thankfully for all of us and our mental health, we didn't go down that road.
Exactly.
Or we couldn't have recorded it so soon. We'd probably still be busy with our teams. Thank you so much, Mark. It's finally great to relate, have a voice, have a face in front of the voice with the 59th minute podcast. It's a great show that you're doing. I hope you continue that once the FPL season restarts. And Bakar,
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks again, guys, for having me.
yeah, no worries, man.
Thanks, Mark, for being on board, and thank you, Ismail, for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you everyone who's listened. You can't do better than these guys in the FPL community, two experts who are very vibrant and active within the FPL community. And I'm sure we can do something like this in the future regarding FPL when it comes back. Anyways, do like the page and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and do follow and subscribe to Mark's 59th minute podcast, which is a great week by week breakdown of especially the fun bit is hearing about players that got substituted in the 59th minute and didn't get their points. So anyway, stay safe and enjoy the Bundesliga that's going to come on soon. Pick a club, pick a team in the Fantasy Premier League German version as well, if you're into that, because I heard that's going to start as well. Anyway, it was great chatting to both of you. It was great doing this episode. I hope people can create their own teams. Until next time, take care.